The violence we saw at the end of October 2020 is the most widespread carnage the state has seen in decades. Not since the SAP riot of 1989 have we experienced such a level of destruction. Every aspect of our life and livelihood in Lagos were affected. Government buildings, offices, public monuments, historical archives, public infrastructures, buses, and very sadly too, private properties, banks, investment houses, malls, shops, small businesses, police stations, private residences, and many more were not spared. Beyond the fiscal and the economic impact, there has also been the psychological damage, the fear, the terror, the helplessness that all the victims have left to deal with. The question about how or where do we start from? The violence has no doubt set our economy back by hundreds of billions of naira and the impacts on our global confidence. We have, however, found hope and great strength in the offers of assistance from far and wide, which culminated in the constitution of the Lagos Rebuild Committee to coordinate our efforts to rebuild and upgrade our state. Let me assure you all that we will bounce back. We do not take it for chance, because this is who we are. This is what Lagos is, a resilient people, an irrepressible city. This is our history. This, we believe, is in our DNA. Here is a city that emerged from most unpromising beginning out of the gloom of a spiral lagoon and malaria swamp by dint of hard work, entrepreneurial energy, and creative excellence. Everything we see and we hold dear to today was built over the centuries. In the time that we have seen this setback and challenges of various kinds, the most prominent ones that we can remember was the Royal Navy bombardment in 1851. We've also seen the influenza epidemic in 1918. We saw the bubonic plague of the 1920s. Even the loss of the federal capital status that many assumed would severely downgrade the state of Lagos. Most recently, we also faced and we defeated Ebola in 2014 and the coronavirus pandemic of 2020, in which case, both two examples, we saw Lagos as the epicenter of the whole nation. In the face of all this, Lagos has always survived. And not just survived, it has thrived. We are a continental center of creativity and innovation, and will continue to be so. Thank you. Every one of these strengths and challenges I listed above ended up opening up into its affirmment an opportunity for a new kind of progress. One step backwards in the short term that paved way for 4 steps forward in the longer term. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, following the violent aftermath of the NSAS protest, we constituted by an executive order a Lagos State Rebuild Trust Fund to be run by an 8-member committee. As a follow-up, a bill will be sent to the House of Assembly to enshrine the fund in the laws of the land and to give it the necessary backing to accomplish its mandate. This is the very reason why we have gathered here today, to operationalize this fund by mobilizing resources from far and wide, from the singular purpose of rebuilding and restoring our dear city and state. We seek to restore the infrastructure that were destroyed, to revive the energy and the confidence of everyone who has been affected by this great loss, to help restore the confidence of the people of Lagos in the infinity potential that Lagos portends. If and when the state government And we believe we cannot do it by ourselves. We cannot do it alone. We need all the help that we can get, which is why we have invited you all here today. And we're grateful that you have all honored our invitation. We require the assistance of the federal government from both the executive and the legislative branches. I am delighted that Mr. Vice President, representative of the Senate President, the Speaker of the House of Representatives are all here with us today. I would also like to appeal to the National Assembly to take steps to set aside funds for this task of rebuilding and restoring Lagos in the 2021 appropriation bill being deliberated upon currently by the Assembly. This fund does not necessarily have to be for Lagos alone, and it should take into consideration that a few other states in the Federation too were impacted by the recent spate of violence. But of course, indeed, Lagos had the phenomenal and the larger parts of all of the crisis. Why are we seeking this privilege? Let me take us back to the text of the nationwide broadcast that was delivered by the then head of state, General Murtala Mohammed, on the 3rd of February 1976, here in Lagos. It was a speech in which he announced that the Supreme Military Council had accepted a recommendation to relocate the federal capital from Lagos to a new site in a more central area in the country. The late head of state said, and I quote, "Lagos will, in the foreseeable future, remain the nation's commercial capital and one of its nerve centers. But in terms of servicing the present infrastructure alone, the committed amount of money and effort will be too great that Lagos State will not be ready to cope. It will even be unfair to expect that the state to bear this heavy burden on its own. It is therefore necessary for the federal government to continue to sustain the substantial investment in this area. The port facilities and other economic activities in Lagos area have to be expanded. There's a need in the circumstance for the federal government to maintain a special defense and security arrangement in Lagos, which will henceforth be designated a special area. These arrangements will be carefully worked out and written in the new constitution." I end my quote. Even as far back as almost half a century ago, it was clear that Lagos required a special status, considering its importance to the economy and to the reputation of Nigeria. Today, with a population that is several times higher than the population in the 70s, which is roughly about 10 times the current population of this country, is still on the same mass of land that it was 50 years ago. As you all know, Lagos is today, like I said, home to over 1/10 of the entire population of Nigeria, even though it is less than 0.36% of the total land mass of this country, less than 0.4% of the land mass of this country. We certainly cannot go any south because that is Atlantic Ocean. Just 10 minutes from this place, you'll have entered another state. Just in 10 minutes drive from where we are, you'll have entered another state. That's how tiny Lagos is. With the recent large-scale destruction of property across the state, the basis for Lagos deserving a special consideration and an external assistance has assumed an unparalleled urgency and significance. There is no time to be wasted. I am therefore calling on the National Assembly to support us in this quest to rebuild and restore, and to reposition the state even as we march into the third decade of the 21st century. On our part, as a state government, we are determined to demonstrate our seriousness regarding this project beyond the establishment of this trust fund and the legislative backing that we're giving to it. We will also be making available a significant amount in our 2021 budget to begin the immediate rebuilding of Lagos. For us, it represents a credible and very important step in the rehabilitation and the restoration process, and it shows that we are willing as a government to put our money where our mouth is, so to speak. But let me reiterate that this, our contribution, though very substantial, is still very quite far off from what we require to make a dent on the burden that confronts us, which is why we have invited you here to join hands to support us, with the public sector taking the rightful lead in demonstrating the commitment. We have no doubt that the private sector will thrive to match that enthusiasm. I can see the private sector here being led by the governor of the central bank, who I must commend because he has other very important appointments. He has given us a commitment that he will come and lead from the front, and rally around all other sectors in that space. I want to thank you, Mr. Mefile, and I also thank Mr. Alhaji Aliko Dangote, who still spoke with me about 4 hours ago, but he has an important online, Zoom meeting with some partners in America, and he had asked that Dr. Monzo to come in here and represent him. I want to thank you very much, Alhaji, and special greetings to Alhaji Aliko Dangote. We believe that the challenging time and the responsive and responsible leadership we will overcome. We can make greater impact through our collaborative efforts in the shortest possible time. There's an African adage that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, I think it's important we go together. And that's why we have brought all of you here together. Mr. Vice President, Right Honorable Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, today's consultative forum is meant to set the stage for all necessary public-private partnership and a collaboration required for this task of rebuilding and restoring Lagos to start. Let us work in the commonality of purpose to restore the glory of our state. You are important stakeholder, each and every one of you here. And I know and I can count on you as the Rebuild Committee reaches out to you for your support in the journey of rebuilding Lagos. Whatever investment we make towards this task will be for the good of all of us. This investment will go into the rebuilding and retooling the security architecture, strengthening our public transportation system, restoring the judicial and local government operatives. I dare say that my Lord Honorable Chief Judge is also worst hit. 22 of her honorable judges as we speak currently do not have a chamber that they can use to adjudicate and pass on judges. I want to thank the Honorable, my Lord the Honorable Chief Judge of Lagos State for holding forth and for explaining to all of my honorable judges, just to bear a bit more patience with us, and we're not leaving them to this alone. Let me at this junction emphasize that transparency and accountability will be the foundational element in the implementation of the mandate of the committee. For these reasons, the fundraising and disbursement will have an oversight with trustees who have appointed FBN trustees as the first instance, and other trustees could also be joining, along with the board that will ensure that there is maximum accountability and value recorded for every Naira that is raised. In this rebuilding process, we will also be asking ourselves some necessary questions. For example, we will seriously be exploring the use of technology to improve urban security and better safeguard all that we hold here, and to digitally preserve our historical archives that will until now have existed only on physical form. We have a duty in the rebuilding and to ensure that the new, which will be replacing the old, is befitting for a 21st century that we are all in today. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the time is now to start the pledging and the collaboration. I look forward to our deliberations this morning and even more importantly, to the actions that would follow following the talks that will make all of the differences. Let me once again, on behalf of the people and the government of Lagos State, thank all of you for making out time to be here with us this morning